Jeremy Lin hopped on Dwight Howard's podcast and dropped some bombshells about Kobe Bryant that absolutely set the internet on fire. He spilled the tea on heated clashes, toxic vibes, and a silent treatment that dragged on for months. It painted a picture of a totally shattered relationship, leaving fans wondering if Lin was secretly relieved when the Mamba left the building. We need to break down exactly what Lin said, how Kobe reacted, and the full timeline of this locker room drama. During a fresh segment on Dwight Howard's Above the Rim show, Lin sat face-to-face with his old Lakers squad mate and got real about life alongside the Black Mamba. He did not hold back on the details of a major falling out between him and Bryant back in their purple and gold days. Lin rocked the Lakers jersey for just the 2014 to 2015 run, right near the end of Kobe's career, and the clip went viral instantly. A user named Slime posted on X, claiming Lin was exposing just how rude the Lakers legend actually was to him. The claim was that after Lin called out Kobe's bad attitude and leadership flaws, Bryant basically iced him out for months. That post exploded online, tearing the fan base into two camps. With one side backing up Lin, others saw it as trashing a legend's memory, while clickbait sites spun the narrative into something way messier than reality. So, what really came out of Lin's mouth? He pinpointed one crazy moment from a game that season. The point guard remembered a clash where, late in a tight game, Kobe was screaming at him to foul on purpose. But Byron Scott, the head coach at the time, was yelling, "Don't do it," leaving Lin paralyzed between two bosses. You have the coach shouting one order, and the franchise icon, literally one of the greatest ever, demanding the exact opposite, caught in the crossfire. Lin froze up, frantically trying to figure out whose command to follow. Kobe was not having it. Lin explained he was just looking for clarity in the heat of the moment, saying, "Hey, help me out here." He said Bryant got mad over a move Lin wanted to make but could not because the coach forbade it. Kobe screamed, "Foul him," and Lin yelled back, "I know, I am trying." But the coach says don't, Lin recalled, admitting he was totally lost in the chaos. That hesitation earned him some serious glare from Kobe, and to get why this matters, you have to grasp the power dynamic there. We are talking about a top 10 all-timer here, but everyone knows Kobe's obsession with winning could get ugly. While snagging 5 rings, the Mamba definitely stepped on toes, including those of the Linsanity icon himself. That killer instinct brought home trophies, but it also made him a nightmare for guys who were not wired with that same intensity. Back then, Lin was no superstar. He was a grinding journeyman fighting for minutes on a sinking ship. He only shared the court with Kobe for that single 2014 to 2015 campaign. It was a brutal year, ending with a 21-60 record, leaving them dead last in the West. So Kobe's rage was not just about a missed foul. It was the agony of drowning at the bottom of the standings. Stick a winner like that on a loser squad, and that anger is bound to explode eventually. But here's the twist. Lin refused to be a punching bag. He did the unthinkable and actually stood his ground against the alpha dog. After catching those dirty looks, Lin decided to shoot his legendary teammate a text once the buzzer sounded. He told Dwight, "I hit him up saying, 'Hey man, I don't appreciate the body language,' which sparked a fiery exchange of replies. Let that sink in for a second. A guy clearly beneath Kobe on the totem pole basically looked the Black Mamba in the eye, digitally speaking, and said, 'I am not cool with this treatment.' You almost never heard of rookies or role players doing that to Kobe. Most players would just swallow their pride and move on. But Lin spoke up, and the fallout was brutal. Lin dropped the bomb that Bryant gave him the silent treatment for 5 solid months, basically the rest of the season. Picture walking into the office daily where the VIP, the face of the company, refuses to acknowledge you. That person treats you like a ghost. And that is exactly the nightmare Lin described on the mic. That raw honesty is what lit the fuse. But to get the full picture, we have to rewind a bit. Born Jeremy Shuhao Lin on August 23rd, 1988. This Taiwanese-American baller has quite the backstory. Raised in the Bay Area by immigrant parents, he was already turning heads and racking up awards by his senior year, despite getting 0 scholarship offers. He went to Harvard and absolutely dominated the Ivy League as a 3-time all-conference star. Literally nothing. No offers for a Palo Alto kid crushing it on the hardwood. With not one done school willing to take a chance on him, critics claimed his skills were smoke and mirrors. But Jeremy Lin told 60 Minutes in 2013 that he knew deep down his heritage was why teams ghosted him on draft night. Even the head honcho, NBA Commissioner David Stern, admitted the kid got overlooked because of old-fashioned discrimination. The guy tore it up at Harvard, dominating the Ivy League for 4 straight years and putting huge numbers on the board. By his senior season, he was a statistical machine, dropping 16.4 points, dishing 4.5 assists, and grabbing 3.3 boards nightly, all while draining 43% of his shots. Then came the heartbreak of the 2010 draft. Despite a killer resume, Jeremy Lin heard silence instead of his name. A brutal snub that failed to break his spirit. Grit and hustle eventually landed him a contract with his hometown Golden State Warriors for the 2010-2011 season. A lifelong fantasy turned reality, but the fairy tale had a dark side. He barely saw the floor and got shipped down to the Reno Bighorns in the D-League not once, but 3 separate times. He wrapped up that rookie campaign with barely a whisper, appearing in just 29 games and scraping together 2.6 points on 38.9% shooting. Then the lockout froze the league. The second basketball returned. The Warriors cut him loose on the very first day of camp without a second thought. The Houston Rockets claimed him off the scrap heap only to turn around and wave him right back into the wilderness. He landed with the New York Knicks as a last resort, riding the pine at the end of the bench and crashing on his brother's sofa while his career hung by a thread. Then, out of nowhere, he sparked a miraculous turnaround for the Knicks during the 2011-2012 season that shocked the planet. He ignited a global frenzy dubbed Linsanity. From February 4th, 2012 to February 14th, this unknown underdog transformed into a superstar, stuck as the 4th-string point guard on a garbage Knicks squad. He exploded for 26.8 points and 8.5 assists over 6 games, capping it with a legendary game-winning dagger in Toronto. During this hot streak, the ultimate boss battle loomed on the calendar, the Los Angeles Lakers. Before tip-off, the media asked Kobe Bryant about the new kid on the block. The entire sports universe was vibrating with hype, but the Black Mamba looked totally unimpressed. When reporters pressed him about the matchup, Bryant laughed it off with a savage, "Who is this kid?" Lin shot back later, "I played against the guy plenty of times my rookie year. He knew exactly who I was. I mean, I don't exactly blend in out there." The showdown went down on February 10th, 2012. Under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden, Lin went nuclear, dropping a career-high 38 points and 7 dimes to carry the Knicks to a 92-85 win, completely outplaying Kobe, who finished with 34. Knowing Kobe had dissed him publicly, Jeremy planned to kill him with kindness, telling his coaches he'd walk right up to the legend and introduce himself man-to-man. Just a casual, "Hey, by the way, Kobe, name's Jeremy Lin." But when the final buzzer sounded, Lin lost his nerve and couldn't bring himself to do it. A moment of hesitation that bummed out his coaching staff. That classic game was in early 2012. They wouldn't wear the same jersey for another 2.5 years. But fate was already pulling them together. When they finally ended up sharing a locker room, nobody predicted the absolute chaos that was about to unfold. In the summer of 2014, the Rockets shipped Jeremy Lin off to Hollywood in a trade with the Los Angeles Lakers. Jeremy spent just one volatile season alongside Kobe Bryant, joining the squad for the 2014-2015 campaign after his stint in Houston. While teaming up with an icon like Kobe should have been the thrill of a lifetime, the dream turned into a nightmare as the Lakers tanked to 14th in the West with a horrific record of 21-60. At first, though, it looked sweet. Bryant's opening text to Lin, who was half asleep in Shanghai that July, was strictly business. "We have a lot of work to do." By the time training camp kicked off, Lin was optimistic, saying Kobe had been incredibly welcoming and gracious to him. Lin told the press, "He's pushing me hard and expecting greatness, basically taking me under his wing as a mentor on the hardwood." They broke down game film and texted constantly. It started with mutual respect, Kobe sharing strategy and talking shop. They were analyzing plays together, building a teacher-student bond that both guys seemed genuinely excited about after the trade in July. Lin admitted that early on. He realized Bryant was actually a regular dude off the court, surprisingly human. But once the real games began, the wheels fell off. The team was losing constantly. They were on track for one of the worst seasons in franchise history, which didn't sit well with a guy who had 5 rings. Playing for one of the worst Lakers squads ever was absolute torture for a competitor like Bryant. And Kobe being Kobe, he didn't handle the losing streak with grace or patience. He handled it with pure fire. He aimed that fire directly at his teammates, and Jeremy Lin took the brunt of the heat. Kobe demanded perfection from everyone in a purple and gold jersey. When Jeremy couldn't hit those impossible standards, Kobe let him have it, famously comparing him to a brand of toilet paper. Yeah, Kobe dropped the soft like Charmin line, the ultimate insult he saved for guys he thought lacked grit. According to Nick Young, Kobe exploded on Lin during practice, roasting him with that infamous soft tissue trash talk. Young claimed the verbal beatdown was so brutal that Lin actually retreated to the locker room and broke down in tears. Now, that story comes from Nick Young, not Lin. but it gives you a glimpse of the toxicity brewing inside that locker room. Kobe was a tyrant that year, and Lin, a fierce competitor himself, was getting crushed under the massive weight of playing next to the most intense athlete in history. While the losses piled up like trash on the curb, Jeremy managed to post 11.2 points and 4.6 dimes nightly over 74 matchups, starting 30 of them. For a floor general stuck on a sinking ship, those stats are respectable. In the Mamba's world, however, respectable doesn't even move the needle. Bryant stood alone as the sole all-star and 20-plus point scorer, already eyeing the exit door at 37 by the next season's finale. Basically, the Black Mamba was dragging that squad uphill by himself. He was the single guy buckets actually dropped for consistently. Watching the rest of the crew stumble just made his blood run hot. That's the powder keg moment where everything finally exploded. It set the stage for Bryant's icy demeanor toward Jeremy. It left the guard feeling less like a teammate and more like furniture. So Jeremy actually pulled the trigger. He fired off a message, telling the legend straight up that the disrespect wasn't going to fly. Jeremy recalled, "I hit his phone like, look, bro, the way you're carrying yourself around me, I'm really not feeling that vibe." He clapped back instantly with some venom, so I just doubled down and matched his energy right there. Things cooled off though, and I told him, "It isn't about refusing to learn. You are clearly 100 times better than me. I'm trying to soak up every bit of game you've got." Jeremy wasn't throwing shade or claiming he was superior. He just wanted basic human decency. As Jeremy put it, "I just pushed back, asking for a teaching style I could actually digest. Talking down to me just doesn't work. Scream at me. Ask what the hell I'm doing. Tell me to lock in for the win. That tells me you actually trust my potential. Treating me like dirt, though, that stings in a whole new way. That pure, I can't stand your face vibe really got under my skin. It's the gap between hard coaching and straight up disdain." Jeremy made it clear he could take the volume and the heat. The critiques were fine. What broke him was feeling like Bryant looked right through him, like he wasn't even worth a word. Once you step over that edge, return trips are rare. The Mamba leaped across it, not by shouting, but by saying absolutely nothing. Following their digital back and forth, Jeremy claims Bryant actually took it well at first. Seemingly open to the feedback, he claimed he got the point and even dropped some pointers on Jeremy's game. It looked like the storm was finally passing. The legend absorbed the critique. He nodded to it. He even offered up some real, usable court wisdom in return. Just two pros hashing out their differences. Right, suddenly. Though, the vibe took a weird, dark turn. Jeremy dropped the bombshell that Bryant iced him out for the next 5 months. That's the detail that floors everyone. Digital Kobe was cool, but real-life Kobe flipped the script. He went total ghost mode. 0 words, 0 acknowledgement. 5 months sitting side by side, suiting up, battling together, and absolute radio silence. Honestly, this wasn't exactly out of character. Jeremy spilled the tea only after Dwight Howard opened up about his own nightmare with Bryant during that doomed 2012-13 run. The Mamba notoriously froze Dwight out while their wildly different vibes crashed and burned all season long. He pulled the exact same stunt on Howard. We're talking about a generational talent in the paint here. Yet Bryant served him that same cold dish. Whenever the legend got annoyed, he wielded quiet like a knife. No shouting matches, no drama. He just vanished emotionally. For a guy craving guidance, that void was absolutely crushing. Jeremy remembered, after a loss, me and him would both be awake around 3 or 4 a.m., unable to crash because we were so competitive. That says it all. Their internal engines ran on the same fuel. Defeats kept them both up at night, eating them alive from the gut out. However, Bryant dealt with the pain by shutting down, while Jeremy needed to vent. Those coping mechanisms crashed head-on. Here's the plot twist. Though, through the icy glares, the texts, and 5 months of dead air, they somehow bridged the gap. Jeremy admitted they fixed the rift, with Bryant confessing he simply wasn't accustomed to a rookie pushing his buttons like that. Coming from the Mamba, that confession is wild. He rarely dealt with anyone who had the guts to clap back. His circle was full of nodders and mutes. When Jeremy shattered that norm, Bryant honestly didn't have a playbook for it. So, he retreated to his safe space, total quiet. The feud evaporated once Jeremy inked a deal with Charlotte the following year. First time they faced off, Jeremy says they greeted each other like old pals. Bryant even kept coaching him for years. That's the headline everyone ignores. Despite the friction, the 5-month freeze-out, and the bad vibes, the two competitors actually found common ground. The mentorship didn't die. They pressed on. The bitterness faded away, and the bond remained intact. During his podcast appearance, Jeremy didn't mince words about his perspective on the whole saga. I'm not throwing dirt on his name. I know he's 1,000 times the hooper I'll ever be. But even as a leader in that moment, I just felt there was a slightly better way to handle the situation. You know, nobody's flawless. Did he owe me respect considering he was a god on the court and I was just a guy? Nah, honestly, I get it. It makes total sense why he'd glance my way and think, man, this guy just isn't delivering the goods. So, look, I'm not hanging on to that baggage anymore. We buried the hatchet a long time ago, but that was definitely the vibe back then. The ring holder from 2019 clearly isn't harboring any resentment, even if he wouldn't exactly call his L.A. stint the highlight reel of his career. Lin has completely turned the page. You heard the man. The past is in the past. He and the Mamba made peace well before the tragedy in January 2020. Zero sour grapes. Absolutely no victory laps. Nobody is cheering about a legend passing away. This is just a guy opening up about a rough patch in his journey while clearly stating he respected the icon involved. But hey, subtlety isn't exactly the internet's strong suit. Social media loves to grab a soundbite, delete the backstory, and twist it into viral bait just to farm engagement. That is precisely how this narrative spun out of control. So, let's just tackle the big question head on. Did Jeremy Lin actually claim he was relieved about Kobe's death? Absolutely not. Not by a long shot. You could analyze that podcast from every angle, and you still wouldn't find a shred of evidence to support that wild take. All Lin pointed out was that the on-court vibes were icy. He mentioned getting the cold shoulder from number 24 for 5 straight months. He simply admitted that sharing the floor with the legend during that specific year was an uphill battle. Admitting things were rocky doesn't mean you're happy someone is gone. Even with the friction, Lin keeps it classy and maintains profound respect for Bryant. Ultimately, those clashes turned into a teachable moment instead of transforming into some forever feud. Lin practically bent over backwards on that show to reiterate his admiration for Kobe over and over again. He straight up said Bryant was 1,000 times the hooper he could ever hope to be. He owned the fact that the talent gap was so wide, Kobe didn't really owe him anything. He emphasized moving on. He confirmed they smoothed it over. He even spoke about Kobe guiding him after his L.A. exit. That doesn't sound like a guy dancing on a grave. That sounds like someone who survived a pressure cooker, grew from it, and is just keeping it real because Dwight Howard brought it up. Let's not forget, Howard was swapping war stories on that mic too. Lin only chimed in after the big man opened up about his own similar run-ins with the Black Mamba. Rewind to the center's own disastrous debut stint in purple and gold, back in the 2012-2013 season. It's legendary how Bryant froze Howard out while their personalities collided like a train wreck. Both in the game and in the locker room, Kobe pulled the exact same move on Dwight. We're talking about a generational talent in the paint, and he got the same icy reception. If Bryant wasn't feeling you, he weaponized silence. No screaming matches, no back and forth. He would just ghost you on an emotional level. And for a guy looking for guidance, that void was absolutely crushing. Lin reminisced, saying, whenever we took an L, both of us would be wide awake at 3 or 4 in the morning, too wired to crash, just super competitive. That specific nugget says a lot. Deep down, their internal wiring was identical when it came to that obsession with victory. Defeat kept them both staring at the ceiling. They were both consumed by that inner fire. The catch was that Bryant processed it by shutting down, while Lin needed to vocalize it. Those two coping mechanisms mixed, like oil and water. Here's the plot twist. Though, regardless of all the drama, the eye-rolling, and the awkward texts, and that 5-month freeze-out, Lin and Bryant eventually found common ground. Lin revealed they managed to squash the beef down the road. Bryant actually admitted he wasn't accustomed to a teammate stepping up to him the way Lin did. Coming from a titan like him, that confession is huge. He rarely dealt with pushback, usually surrounded by folks who either nodded along or kept their mouths shut. So, when Lin disrupted the status quo, Bryant was at a loss. Retreating to his default setting, total radio silence. The tension evaporated the moment Lin suited up for the Hornets the following season, and they faced off. According to Lin, they approached midcourt like it was all water under the bridge. From then on, Bryant kept mentoring him throughout his journey. That is the critical piece of the puzzle everyone conveniently ignores. After all the friction, the 5 months of dead air, the glares, and the headaches, they made it right. Bryant didn't just move on. He stayed in Lin's corner. They progressed. The animosity died. The bond held up. And on that mic, Lin left zero ambiguity about his stance. He stated plainly, I'm not throwing shade at Kobe, because I fully admit he is 1,000 times the athlete I'll ever be. But my point is, strictly regarding leadership in that specific moment. I had some feedback on how things could have been managed better. Nobody's perfect. Right, he went on. Did a player of his caliber owe me any respect? Nah, not really. I totally get why he'd size me up and think, man, this dude just isn't cutting it for the squad. So, to reiterate, I'm not carrying that weight today. I released it. We fixed it. But that was the dynamic back then. The 2019 title winner obviously isn't bitter, even if he wouldn't exactly frame his Lakers tenure as his golden era. Lin is past it. He voiced it clearly. It's done. He and the legend made amends before Bryant's passing in January 2020. Zero resentment exists here. No one is bragging, and absolutely nobody is celebrating a tragedy. Here is the reality: a man is simply opening up about a rough patch in his career, while explicitly stating he still reveres the legend involved. But the internet, it hates gray areas. It wants scandal, and that is exactly how this narrative got twisted. So let's crush the big, ugly rumor right now. Did Jeremy Lin say he was happy Kobe Bryant passed away? Absolutely not. Not even in the same universe. You can listen to that podcast 50 times. But that wild conclusion never holds water. What Lin actually said was simple. Kobe's vibe was off. The Mamba gave him the cold shoulder, total silence for 5 straight months. He was just being honest about the grind. Sharing the court with number 24 that season, it was brutal. None of that equates to cheering for death. Despite the friction, Lin holds zero grudges and maintains deep respect for the icon. Ultimately, those clashes were just a tough lesson in the school of hard knocks, not a forever war. Lin went overboard on that mic to pay homage. He straight up called Kobe a player 1,000 times better than he could ever dream of being. He owned the reality. 2, a legend like Kobe didn't owe a journeyman anything, considering the massive skill gap between them. He said it's water under the bridge. They fixed it. He even spoke about how the Mamba kept coaching him up long after they parted ways. That isn't the vocabulary of a man dancing on a grave. That is the voice of someone who survived the fire, learned the lesson, and is only talking about it because Dwight Howard put him on the spot. And let's not forget, Dwight Howard came to that podcast armed with his own chest of Kobe war stories. Lin only told his side after Howard shared his own rocky ride with Bryant during that doomed super team run back in the 2012-13 season. Kobe notoriously froze Dwight out when their vibes didn't mesh. It wasn't just Lin. The Mamba gave Howard the exact same silent treatment. Think about that, the most dominant center of his generation got the cold shoulder. Just like the point guard did. When Kobe wasn't feeling you, silence was his weapon. No shouting matches. No drama. He just emotionally vanished. And for a teammate desperate for guidance, that kind of emotional void is absolutely crushing. Lin reminisced. Me and him. After a loss, we'd be up at 3 or 4 in the morning, staring at the walls, too wired to sleep. That detail speaks volumes. They were cut from the same obsessive cloth. Defeat ate at them both. They were both burning up inside. But Kobe bottled it up, while Lin wanted to talk it out. Those styles were total opposites. But hold on, because this is where the plot flips. Because despite the drama, the icy body language, the ignored texts, and 5 months of dead air, Lin and Kobe eventually found common ground. Lin revealed they patched it up, with Bryant admitting he just wasn't used to anyone challenging him. Coming from a god-tier competitor like the Black Mamba, that is a massive confession. He wasn't used to pushback. His circle was mostly yes men or people too scared to breathe wrong in his direction. So when Lin broke the mold, Kobe didn't have a script for it. He rebooted to his default setting, silence. The feud evaporated the moment Lin signed with the Hornets. First time they faced off, they dapped it up like old friends. And get this, Kobe Bryant kept mentoring Lin for the rest of his playing days. That is the headline everyone ignores. After the stress, the 5-month freeze-out, and the frustration, they made peace. Kobe kept coaching him. They moved on. The beef had an expiration date. The bond survived the battle. And on that podcast, Lin drew a hard line in the sand regarding his stance. Lin said, "I'm not throwing shade at Kobe. I fully own that he was a player 1,000 times better than I'll ever be. But my point is, even for a leader of his magnitude in that specific moment, here's some feedback I felt you could have handled better. Nobody is perfect." Right, he added. Did a legend of his stature owe me respect? Nah, not necessarily. I get why he'd look at me and think, yo, this guy isn't delivering. So, honestly, I don't hold on to that negativity today. I've let it go. We patched it up. But the clash, that was the reality. The 2019 NBA champ clearly harbors no ill will, even if his L.A. days weren't exactly a highlight reel. Lin has turned the page. He said it himself. It is done. He and Kobe made amends well before the legend passed in January 2020. No bitterness. There's no victory lap here. No sick celebration of a tragedy. It is just a man being honest about a difficult job, while making sure the world knows he still respects the icon he worked with. But the web isn't built for context. It grabs a clip, strips away the nuance, and serves up rage bait for clicks. And that is exactly how this story went off the rails. So, let's clear the air and tackle that elephant. Did Jeremy Lin actually imply he felt relief over Kobe Bryant's passing? Not by a long shot. You could analyze that podcast from every angle and never find a shred of evidence for that conclusion. Lin simply pointed out that Kobe's body language was intense. He explained that the Mamba froze him out with the silent treatment for 5 straight months. He admitted that sharing the court with Kobe that season was a grind. None of that equates to celebrating a death. Despite the friction, Jeremy Lin respects the legend deeply. Their clash was a lesson in toughness, not a permanent feud. Now, we need to look at the road Lin traveled after leaving Los Angeles. Because his book didn't close with the Lakers. People freeze him in time as the face of the New York Knicks in 2012. But he carved out a real legacy long after Linsanity faded. He evolved into a solid floor general, suiting up for the Houston Rockets, Los Angeles Lakers, Charlotte Hornets, and Brooklyn Nets. Everything shifted the moment his patellar tendon ruptured in Brooklyn. He never quite regained that explosive first step. That brutal injury sidelined a career built on defying odds, from sleeping on couches to going undrafted and being overlooked by the titans of the game. He became a journeyman, landing with the Atlanta Hawks before getting cut. Next stop was the Toronto Raptors. There, he etched his name in history as the first Asian American to win an NBA title in 2019. The guy nobody wanted, the guy left off every draft board, finally got his ring. The same guy Kobe once claimed he didn't know. He won the ultimate prize. Yet even a championship couldn't secure his spot in the league. Lin confessed, "I think the knee injury started the slide. After we took the title in 2019, I thought I'd get a shot since I was finally healthy. But the phone just didn't ring. It got so desperate that I was practically begging teams, asking if I could just get a non-guaranteed training camp invite. I just wanted a chance to prove I belonged. I couldn't even get that. So he headed overseas to China. Lin dominated with the Beijing Ducks, leading the charge and hoping NBA scouts were watching. He returned to the G League, hungry for one more shot. He sacrificed massive money, giving up $7 million to take a $30,000 salary in the minors. He put up 19.8 points, 3.2 rebounds, and 6.4 assists a night. Yet, those solid numbers weren't enough to convince a single NBA franchise to offer him even a minimum contract. On Howard's show, Lin also opened up about the frustration of playing for a tanking team, a squad that intentionally benched him and others when they played too well, simply because management wanted to lose. Lin remembered thinking, "I'm on pace for a huge game," only to be told, "We got a call from upstairs. You're done for the night." He was stuck in organizations that valued draft lottery odds over winning basketball games. Through every setback, he refused to fold. He kept lacing them up. He kept grinding. Jeremy Lin has now officially turned the page on his 15-year pro career. The 37-year-old said goodbye to the game with a statement that felt like a mix of gratitude and a final victory lap. His impossible journey spanned 480 NBA games across 8 franchises, with averages of 11.6 points, 4.3 assists, 2.8 rebounds, and 1.1 steals. That road led to the mountaintop, a 2019 championship with Toronto, cementing his legacy as the first Asian American to hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy. This is the saga of Jeremy Lin, a warrior who battled prejudice, doubt, broken bones, and the pressure of playing next to the fiercest competitor ever. When he sat down with Dwight Howard, he spoke his truth. He didn't trash Kobe. He didn't cheer for tragedy. He didn't tarnish the memory. He described 2 alpha mentalities that collided and eventually found common ground. The headline claiming otherwise is pure fiction. Jeremy Lin never said he was happy Kobe Bryant is gone. He said sharing the floor with him was a heavy challenge. He said Kobe's demeanor could be cutting. He said standing his ground cost him 5 months of conversation with an idol. But he also made it clear they mended fences, that Kobe continued to guide him, and that his respect for the Mamba is absolute. Anyone twisting this into a feud isn't hearing the man speak. Lin delivered a mature, honest perspective on a rough patch in his professional life. The fact that he can discuss the friction while honoring Kobe's greatness proves his class far better than any sensationalist headline. For Lin, handling Bryant meant enduring silence, critiques, late-night texts, and in-your-face intensity. But it also meant soaking up game from a legend. That is the reality. That is the whole story. The headline posed a question, and the answer is a hard no. Jeremy Lin does not celebrate the loss of Kobe Bryant. He is simply a man reflecting on the fire it took to play beside him. Don't just skim the clickbait title, actually watch the footage. And you will see Kobe wasn't the antagonist in Lin's narrative. The man was complex, a relentless force driving teammates to the breaking point because he refused to settle for mediocrity. Then you have Lin, who wasn't anywhere near Kobe's stature, yet possessed the backbone to demand. Challenge me, sure, but treat me like a human being. That isn't throwing shade. That is raw authenticity. Being real about an icon you admire doesn't imply you are celebrating their absence. It signifies that you valued that connection enough to speak the unvarnished truth about what it